Recording in progress.
Good morning. I'm Gregory Longini, the Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On June 10th of this year, the Chicago Transit Board office issued a notice of change format of the Chicago Transit Board meetings that would take place today.
Recording in progress.
2021. Due to good morning, COVID. I'm Gregory Longini, the Secretary to the May 28th, 2021. Illinois Governor Pritzker renewed for a period of 30 days the disaster proclamation in effect to address the COVID-19 pandemic in Illinois. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, because the statewide disaster proclamation remains in effect, public meetings may proceed virtually and without the requirement for a physical quorum. This means that the Chicago Transit Authority public meetings occurring today will take place only virtually. Because the governor's disaster proclamation remains in effect in the state of Illinois, the meetings on June 16th, 2021 are being held electronically or virtually pursuant to the amended provision of the Open Meetings Act, Section 7E, which allows for virtual public meetings while the disaster proclamation remains in effect. We're now ready to begin the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. But before we begin the actual proceedings, I would like to turn it over to Vice Chairman Arabelle Alvarez-Rosales to say a few words.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and welcome a new member to our board, Lester Barkley. He was appointed by Mayor Lightfoot. Mr. Barkley has practiced law in Chicago for over 36 years and is owner and senior partner at the law firm of Barkley Group, PC. He has extensive experience leading boards of various civic and charitable organizations throughout the city, including president of the board of directors for Christian Community Health Center, advisory board member for the City of Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs, and president of the Chicago Office of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. Lester is no stranger to the CTA. Many of you may know him from his recent work as chairman of CTA Citizens Advisory Board, where he has served since 2018. But his journey with CTA began more than 30 years ago, where he actually started and worked as an intern in rail operations and then as per diem attorney in the law department. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome, and we look forward to working with you, Lester Barkley. I'll now turn it over to Director Silva to commence the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee. But right before that, I know that President Carter wanted to say a few words at this point. So we'll go there first, and then we'll go to Director Silva.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rosales. I also wanted to say a few words to welcome Director Barkley to CTA. Director Barkley and I have known each other pretty much our entire careers. You mentioned, Vice Chair Rosales, that he worked as a per diem attorney for CTA early in his career. Well, that work he was doing with me. And so we both have sort of learned CTA together, so to speak, over the years. And but more importantly, I know Director Barkley's passion for transit. I know his commitment to public service. I know his integrity and diligence to working hard and working towards good outcomes. And I am thrilled and excited personally to welcome him to CTA, but also on behalf of the staff of CTA, I want to give you our sincere congratulations and welcome, and we look forward to working with you during your term here on the board. So thank you, and I'll now turn it back over to Greg.
Thank you very much, Dorval. And as Vice Chairman Alvarez-Rosales said, we're now ready to begin the actual meeting. So Chairman Silva, we can now start working on the proceedings of the day's agenda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the June 16, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Alvarez-Rosales,
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum of the committee with 6 members, all 6 members present, sir. We may proceed to item number 2. Item number 3. No, 2. I'm sorry. Item number 2.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of May 12, 2021. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. I'll now take a roll call vote on the minutes. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Stay.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva? Or Chairman Silva?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Barkley.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here to present the results for April and year-to-date numbers. As you can see here on the first page, April revenues, we have a new column included in the report this month due to the fact that we passed an amended budget. So we now do a variance to the amended budget as well as a variance to the original budget so that you can do an apples-to-apples comparison to what we've done over the first quarter of the year. As you can see here for April revenues, fair and pass totals are slightly below amended budget levels, but relatively flat at about $700,000 down. Versus the original budget, we're almost $5 million higher than originally assumed in that budget at the beginning of the year. Reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected. However, I would like to highlight the fact that the state has cut us from $28 million historically what we've received to $14 million, which is what we budgeted this year, which we continue to receive, but it is below the historic numbers that we have traditionally received, as well as well below the numbers that we actually provide in free and reduced fare rides. Non-fare box totals were adjusted in the amended budget to account for hopefully the temporary reduction in GTT receipts from the city, as well as other adjustments to advertising and other concession revenues. That's down a little bit to budget by about $800,000, but better than what we had seen versus the original budget because of the adjustments that we made. So total revenues for the month of April are slightly down on an amended budget basis by about $1.5 million, but better than the original budget by over $2 million. So again, we continue to better the revenue assumptions as per the budget that was released the end of last year for calendar year 2021. And then there's some slight negative variance with regard to the amended budget. On a year-to-date basis, on the next page, we see a similar trajectory on the various line items. Fare and pass totals, again, for the amended budget, we're dealing with 1 month, so it's the same as what we talked about on the prior page. But versus the original budget, we're almost $13 million to the positive on fare and pass totals. Again, reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected. Non-fare box revenues, again, about $800,000 down on an amended budget basis and down about $9 million on an original budget basis. Overall revenues on a year-to-date basis are down about $1.5 million on an amended budget basis and positive by $4 million plus versus the original budget. So again, we continue to see some positive momentum on revenues versus that original budget, and we'll continue to see how they fare out in the coming months versus the amended budget numbers. On the expense side of the house, we continue to do great work with the assistance of the various departments at CTA to control our expenses both on a monthly basis and on a year-to-date basis, which we'll walk through here. Labor continues to be favorable on both an amended budget and original budget basis. Material is essentially flat, slightly down. Fuel and power continue to be very strong performers for us. And then injuries and damages and security services coming in essentially at budget or slightly positive. And then other expenses continue to be favorable for us to the tune of about $3 million. So overall, both on an amended budget basis and original budget basis, we're positive by about a little over $5.5 million. So on a net basis, we see for the month of April, positive by 4.2 million on an amended budget basis, net against the revenues. And then on an original budget basis, we're positive by almost $8 million, 7.8 million when you net against the revenues. On the next page, we see similar trends here on year-to-date expenses. And, kind of dropping to the bottom line here, we see total operating expenses, again, about $5.5 million favorable on an amended budget basis, but almost $18 million favorable versus the original budget. So on a net basis, we're positive by 4.2 versus the amended budget, and positive by over $22 million versus the original budget. So again, we've been able to continue the trend that we've been doing for several years, but really ramped up in the COVID period here to control our expenses as best we can, to stretch those critical federal subsidy dollars, CARES funding, CRISA funding, and the ARP funding as far as we can. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. On the next page, we talk about our public funding numbers. As you can see here for the month, we see a positive trajectory on each of the line items. Sales tax is positive by about $3 million, PTF by about $2.5 million, as is RET by $2.5 million. And then PTF on RET and ICE funding is positive by over $500,000 total. So overall, almost $9 million of favorability, whether you're looking at it on an amended budget or original budget basis. On the next page, we see year-to-date numbers. And again, positive trajectory on each of the line items, where we see sales tax about $5.7 million favorable. PTF, again, strong performer for us. And then the real estate transfer tax, another strong performance, on that line item. And then PTF on RET and ICE funding continue to be positive. So between $21 million on an amended budget basis and $30 million on an original budget basis, again, very strong performance for us as we continue to move forward. One other point of note is that the PTF funding that we have historically received from the state since 2017 has been haircut by the state because of their own financial problems by 5% or about $16 million a year. Due to the federal funding that the state has received, we received notice that that funding would be restored as we move forward. So again, that's good news, out of the state, that not only are further cuts not coming, but that the cuts that were implemented previously are going to be reversed as we move forward. So good news on that front, and that will continue to aid to positive momentum here on our public funding numbers. Next page, please. The CARES Act draws, we've drawn about 82% of the total allocation of $817 million. So we have about $150 million of CARES funding left. We fully executed the CRISA grant with the federal government last week. So we will be able to start drawing on those funds, after we exhaust the CARES funding. But again, we'll have several more months of funding available to draw down against the CARES funds. Again, this has been aided by the fact that we've been very careful with our expenditures and ensuring that we can draw out the time of when we're expending the CARES funding. So again, great work from the entire agency to make sure that we're able to stretch those critical federal subsidy dollars as far as we can. Next page, please. With regard to the three commodities that we purchase, fuel, power, and natural gas, we are fully locked in for outer years for power and natural gas. We're in the concluding, leg of a procurement for additional fuel purchases in outer years. We'll look for selective opportunities to make additional fuel purchases in those outer years. And again, albeit while you see prices, higher at the retail pump, the types of blends that we purchase, we still are relatively low and not too far off of our 2021 budgeted estimates. So again, it's an opportunistic time to buy some of those future years And we'll look for opportunities not only on fuel, but power and natural gas as we continue to move forward as well. That concludes my prepared remarks for the April FAB report. I'm glad to answer any questions.
In the high volatility, of fuel, how are you protecting yourself?
So we purchase on a forward basis a percentage of our fuel needs. So we've been able, over the course of the last couple of years, to purchase, our fuel assumed usage at 85% for 2021 and about 75% for 2022. So we lock in, again, opportunistically at very low prices, and we only are open to spot pricing based on the percentage that we don't lock in. So for instance, for 2021, there's only about 15% of the overall usage that we would lock in on the spot price market, which again is only about 10 cents higher than where we locked in for 2021. So again, we've been able to lock in a large portion of our need, and then we again kind of continue to track spot pricing to see if we should lock in more or just continue to float on a small portion of the overall usage.
But the 2022, you are not buying any, or you are?
Yeah, so for 2022, we bought 75% of our expected usage already. And then what this RFP will address is outer years beyond 2022. So we'll look to make opportunistic buys when the market allows to start locking in outer year purchases as well.
Thank you.
Those are all your questions, Chairman Silva? All right, we'll move on then to the other board members. Director Jakes, any questions for Jeremy on the finance report?
No questions, Greg.
Thank you. Director Miller?
No question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Alias?
No question. Well, one comment, great job on the PTF. That's great news to hear that. I have a question regarding the CARES funds. So I know initially, and great job there for stretching everything out. We had talked about March, April, right? That the funds would maybe stretch out to then, and then now we're in June. So we're talking about 80-something%. What are we looking at? Do you think it'll stretch out till October, November?
So our draws over the last several months have been about $50 million a month. We have about $150 million or so left. So we're estimating based on that kind of draw schedule that we've seen over the last several months. Again, that's all relative to how public funding and ridership and other things continue to track. But based on that kind of schedule, we would probably see about another 3 months of draws for the CARES funding, and then the CRISA funding, of which we received $361 million of that funding allocation. That's the second, strip of federal subsidies that would carry us through, or is projected to carry us through the end of 2021 and into the beginning of 2022.
Great. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, Chairman Silva, the questions are finished on that item, so we may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is a presentation by the independent auditor for fiscal year 2020. Jeremy.
So I appreciate, this is Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and the auditors have concluded their audit report for the year, and they're here to present. We have representatives from both Crow and Adelphia who are our auditors. So I'll turn it over to Christine to walk through the audit report, and then I'll have a few concluding remarks as well.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning. I am Christine Torres, as Jeremy indicated, partner with Crow, and I'm here with Maria today, who's a partner at Adelphia, who is our partner and DBE subcontractor on this engagement. We have completed our audit of the December 31st, 2020 financial statements. We were engaged to audit the financial statements to determine that they are reasonably stated in all material respects, as well as to audit the federal grant funds in accordance with the guidelines set forth by the federal government for compliance with the different laws and regulations as they apply. In regards to the financial statement audit, it has been completely completed and the auditor's opinion has been issued. The audit opinion was unmodified or a clean audit opinion, which basically means that all of the amounts presented in the financial statements and the notes to the financial statements are reasonably stated in all material respects. As required by government auditing standards, we also look at the internal controls over financial reporting to determine if there are any items that are required to be identified under these standards. We do not have any findings to report under government auditing standards for the current year. Maria is going to continue on and provide us an update on our results of the federal audit.
Good morning. I'm Maria Bolita, partner with Adelphia, and I am representing the DBE partner on the audit. I'm happy to report that Crow was able to issue an unmodified opinion on compliance with the federal programs for the year ended December 31, 2020. CTA receives a number of federal grant programs. However, based on federal guidelines, our testing was focused on one major program this year. This program is the Federal Transit Cluster. Due to the size of this grant and the inclusion of the CARES funding within the cluster, we had 96% coverage of the federal funds spent, as this is the largest federal program the CTA expends from. As part of this process, we also evaluated the internal controls over compliance with those programs. Based on our testing, I am pleased to report that we do not have any findings to report. Christine?
Thanks, Maria. This is a pretty quick summary of our audit procedures for both the federal and financial audit for the current year. We would like to thank the entire finance department for working with us in a professional manner and providing us all the information required to timely issue all of the audit opinions. It was a very unique year with difficult circumstances, and I know everyone worked really hard across all of CTA to provide us the information remotely so that we can continue to meet all of the required deadlines that CTA has. At this point, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
So you don't have any material information whatsoever?
Correct. There are no material findings in either the financial or federal audit.
And in the internal controls, also you're
Correct. Yes, we do test internal controls over the financial statements as well as over the federal programs. And during that testing, we had no exceptions to the controls that were tested.
So thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Jakes, any questions for the auditors?
No questions, Greg. Thank you.
You, Director Miller?
No question, Greg. Thank you.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Thank you. Director Irvine?
No questions. Thanks.
Director Alvarez-Alias?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Then thank you to both of the auditors for that. And Chairman Silva, with no further questions, we may proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a local location pilot agreement with Amazon.com Services, LLC, to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers at designated rail stations. Jeremy.
Thank you. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And just with regard to the audit, I'd also like to thank the CTA team, Sharon Wheeler and her team on making sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted in our financial statements. It's easier said than done to get that clean opinion with no findings. So again, appreciate all of the hard work on the CTA team as well. With regard to the Amazon lockers, today I present for your consideration an amendment to the current agreement with Amazon that will extend the pilot period to test the viability of Amazon delivery lockers and CTA stations by 1 year. CTA originally identified 5 locations for the pilot program. 4 locations, including Thorndale Red, Cicero Green, Pulaski Orange, and 95th Street Red, have been installed, and then the Cumberland Blue is awaiting installation imminently. The extension of the pilot period by an additional 1 year will give us more time to complete the install at all 5 locations and to fully study the usage of the lockers, which has continued to grow month over month for those locations that have already been installed. We are especially interested in monitoring usage at the lockers as the city reopens and ridership begins to rebuild from the COVID-19 pandemic. This amendment also gives staff the ability to add or substitute additional lockers if needed. The lockers provide an amenity to CTA customers who are able to conveniently pick up or return Amazon packages as part of their CTA trip. Amazon is fully responsible for all costs related to the procurement, installation, servicing, and operation of the lockers, including any necessary costs to run electricity at the locations. During the extended pilot period, Amazon will continue to pay CTA a monthly flat fee of $25 per machine per month to reimburse CTA for operating expenses, including the cost of electricity. Amazon will continue to maintain insurance coverage for installing and operating the lockers on CTA property, and the lockers offer a range of security accessibility features and the CTA has experienced no security issues with lockers on our property. Over the course of the extended pilot, CTA and Amazon will monitor usage of the lockers, ridership at the designated stations, and customer feedback, and CTA will determine whether to pursue delivery lockers at CTA stations on a wider and more long-term basis. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
The lockers are going to be used to receive and to send packages?
That's correct. You may have seen these types of lockers. There's one at the Merchandise Mart, Block 37, in the Pedway there. They're kind of scattered around the city in various, high traffic areas, as well as other locations like Walgreens and some other locations around the city. You can receive or send packages as a Amazon customer. You would receive a code that you type into the electronic pad, which would allow you to access the lockers. They're not accessible other than if you had a code to type in.
And who is responsible for something happening? Okay.
So Amazon is responsible for maintaining and operating the lockers. They've done a good job keeping them clean and serviced, and we've received no complaints with regard to the operation or maintenance of the lockers in the system.
And they have future interest, in more lockers.
Yes, yeah, we're really on the cutting edge here at CTA, being one of the first in the U.S., if not the first, to implement lockers on public transit. So we're excited about that. They have done some test cases and other transit agencies around the world, but here we seem to be the first one. So we're looking at how successful this will be post-pandemic as things start to reopen, people start riding the system in mass again, and we see how the lockers are being used in a more normalized setting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Jakes, any questions?
No, I just wanted to say, Jeremy, I think that is great. Forward thinking. Those lockers, from the people I know that use them, are very happy for their accessibility and affording them the opportunity to not have their packages at home so that porch pirates can get them. So again, I think it's a great job of forward thinking.
Thank you.
Director Miller, any questions?
No question.
Director Barkley.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions. Great work.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
No questions.
All right, Chairman Silva, there are no further questions on Amazon project.
Our next order of business.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
We need to put this on the omnibus.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. We can now proceed to number 6, Chairman.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Assets, Information and Services. Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago Department of Assets, Information and Services, known as AIS. The department, which was previously known as the Department of Fleet and Facility Management, has been a co-promotion partner of CTA since 2006. The total value of the co-promotional trade is a little under $400,000. This is identical to the 2020 trade value, and CTA will provide AIS with interior car cards on bus and rail and space on our digital advertising screens up to the amount in value. As this is unsold advertising space that CTA is providing, and as printing costs are the responsibility of AIS, there is no cost to CTA to enter into this co-promotional agreement. AIS will provide CTA space on 250 JC2Co managed bus shelters that are located throughout Chicago, a total value equal to the co-promotional trade value, and CTA anticipates leveraging this space on the bus shelters to promote our "When You're Ready, We're Ready" reopening marketing campaign. This partnership gives CTA exposure to a larger audience of residents and visitors through advertising on the city's bus shelters, and it also enables the City of Chicago to reach CTA customers with important messages related to city programs and events. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Chairman Silva?
Yes. The ones that are managed by the city, okay, I mean, is the Cox, the JC, the Cox, that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, so through this co-promotion agreement, we gain access to advertising on the JC2Co bus shelters that are throughout the city, not just in the Central Business District, but throughout the city. So we will have access, as we have had in the past, through this co-promotional agreement to be able to advertise, which is, important more than ever due to, the reopening campaign that we're running to get people back on the system en masse. So again, this is a great opportunity for us to utilize some unsold advertising space and gain access to the larger JC2Co bus shelter structures for advertising.
Okay, thank you.
Democratic.
Director Jakes, any questions for Jeremy?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
Jeremy, this remained the same as in 2006. What's the difference?
So this is a similar structure. The amount, the value has grown a little bit over time, but the value of the co-promotion is the same as it was last year and relatively the same over the last several years, which is about $400,000 of trade value in terms of advertising in our space and advertising value that we receive on the city structures.
Thank you.
Director Barkley, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Just confirmation that we are using this to advertise our return to ridership campaign. That's correct.
That is correct. We continue to work with Brian Steele and his group, to continue to access the JC2Co shelters for that campaign.
Great, thanks.
There's no further questions, Chairman.
See, if there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. Chairman Silva, we can move to number 7.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental University Pass UPass program agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for certain part-time students for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. Jeremy?
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration, I present a proposal for an extension of the City Colleges of Chicago part-time UPass experimental program. for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 academic terms. Per this experimental program, selected part-time City College students taking between 9 and 11 credit hours are eligible to receive a UPass. The initial City College part-time experimental program was implemented during the fall of 2018 and spring 2019 terms and subsequently extended for 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 academic years. This experimental program allows part-time City College students to be eligible to receive UPasses, the same as the previous agreements. Due to the onset of COVID-19 in March of 2020 and the temporary discontinuation of in-person classes, staff recommends extending the City College part-time student program for the 2021-2022 academic year to assess the effectiveness of the pilot program. A daily student rate of $1.25 will be assessed per the general UPass agreement, and City Colleges has placed some additional qualifications for part-time students to be eligible to receive a UPass, such as completion of a financial aid package, payment in full of any tuition and fees, an agreement to participate in up to 3 surveys regarding their UPass and writing history. At the conclusion of this experimental program, CTA will review the ridership of the part-time UPass issued and make a comparison to make a recommendation as to the potential permanency of the part-time UPass model. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
So we will give them the pass this year and next year. For how many years are we maintaining this?
So right now, what we're asking for is an extension of 1 year of the UPass pilot, for the part-time students at City Colleges. And that will allow us, hopefully, to start seeing how the UPass program, how this part-time UPass program continues to respond as students start going back to a traditional academic setting. So, obviously with, COVID and a lot of classes or most classes, if not all classes, going online, it was not a lot of students elected to participate in the program the way that they had prior to the pandemic. So again, this extension of the pilot will hopefully allow us to continue to see a building of support, in a base for utilization of the part-time program at City Colleges. And we'll talk more in a moment with regard to UIC as well.
Okay, thank you.
Director Jakes?
No, I think Jeremy, you just answered my question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have an estimated time that you plan on doing either a hard stop or a definite continuation of the pilot?
Yeah, I think after this year, depending on what how kids whether they go back to a traditional academic setting and whether they stay there for the whole year. I think probably at the end of this year, we'll have a better understanding of what the larger dynamics are, both at City Colleges and what we'll talk about here in a moment with UIC, to make a better assessment of the permanency of the program or what kind of adjustments we would need to do to the pilot. But again, we need to kind of get back to a steady state. Hopefully that happens this year, but we'll, fingers crossed, but we'll see. But, hopefully if things kind of get back to a steady state, we'll have a better understanding of the larger dynamics of how this would be rolled into a longer standing, more permanent program.
And Director Jake, just to clarify Jeremy's comment, when he says this year, he's talking about the school academic year, which as a practical matter means 2022 for us. So we will not be deciding this permanently by the end of our calendar year.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carter. Director Miller, any questions?
No question.
Director Barkley.
Just one question. Jeremy, how many students participated in the program last year?
So prior to the pandemic, we saw a building of the participation in the program. There was about 1,600 students that participated in the program in the 2018 calendar year. That built to about 2,200 students in the 2019 academic calendar year. Obviously, with the onset of the pandemic and students not going to, going virtually as opposed to in person, that dropped off quite a bit. So again, this extension for a year will allow us to see how things start to stabilize and rebound, and hopefully get back on that track and exceed those prior numbers that we saw before the pandemic broke out.
Thank you.
Director Irvine,
No questions, thanks.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
No questions.
Thank you. We're finished with questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Director Irvine and Jakes. We may proceed to number 8, sir.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental university UPass program agreement with the University of Illinois at Chicago UIC for certain part-time students for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration, I present a proposal for an extension of the University of Illinois at Chicago UIC part-time UPass experimental program for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 academic terms. Per this experimental program, graduate and undergraduate part-time students taking between 8 and 11 credit hours shall receive a UPass. UIC participated in a UPass pilot during the fall of 2020 and spring of 2021 academic terms. A year extension of the pilot will allow us to better understand and assess the performance as things get back to normal. As with the past convention, a daily student rate of $1.25 per day will be assessed. And at the conclusion of this experimental program, CTA will review the ridership of the UPass of the part-time UPasses issued, and then be able to make a better assessment as to the potential permanency of this part-time UPass model. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Since I don't have a question.
No questions. All right. Director Jakes.
Jeremy, so the City Colleges of Chicago, UIC, are you looking at any other institutions?
Yes, this is something that we continue to have conversations with, between several other, members that are currently in the full-time program that have larger part-time cohorts. And so there are some potential other opportunities to expand this part-time UPass program at some other schools. Again, I think that folks are really kind of waiting to see how things shake out here for this upcoming academic year. And we'll be able to have a better assessment as we move forward, of potentially not only making this a permanent program, but expanding the base to other schools beyond city colleges and UIC.
Thank you.
Director Miller.
No question.
Director Barkley.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
No questions.
No further questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have you to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. We may proceed to number 9.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the continuation of University UPass contract terms previously amended due to the COVID-19 pandemic for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration, I present a proposal to continue to offer flexibility of certain UPass contract provisions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Colleges and universities have experienced drastic and unique enrollment challenges since March of 2020. Due to these challenges, CTA has offered schools the flexibility of selectively enrolling students who want a UPass for a given term instead of mandatory participation required by the UPass contract. The board previously approved enrollment flexibility through the summer of 2021. In conversations with many schools, staff has learned that in-person classes may still be limited for the fall of 2021. While these reductions are not as significant as those that were seen in the academic year of 2020 and 2021, there will still be a significant portion of students that will learn remotely and not require travel to and from campus. as these schools have been valued partners of CTA over the past several years, and to provide incentives for schools to remain in the program during the upcoming school year, staff recommends continuing the flexibility to schools regarding certain UPass contract terms through the spring of 2022 academic term. Should schools return to full in-person learning in the spring of 2022, per the proposed ordinance, staff would have the discretion to reinstate all UPass contract terms and conditions. Per the current UPass agreement, all full-time students must be assigned and charged for a UPass during the terms which they are enrolled. Allowing flexible terms to the participating schools during the pandemic will allow students to continue to use CTA services. Without such flexibility during these unique and challenging times, many participating schools may elect not to remain in the program. I'm glad to answer any questions.
No, I don't have any questions.
All right, Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Thank you. Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
There's no further questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. We may proceed to 10.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance consenting to the acquisition of Cubic Transportation Systems, Inc. by certain affiliates of Veritas Capital and Elliott Investment Management, and authorizing a supplement to the Open Standards Fair System Agreement. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration consent to an acquisition of Cubic Transportation, Inc. and a fifth supplement to the Cubic agreement in connection with Cubic's acquisition by affiliates of Veritas Capital and Elliott Investment. Through the transaction, Cubic went from being a publicly traded company to privately held. Cubic will remain based in San Diego, California, and the transition is expected to be seamless for customers. CTA has negotiated the following amendments that provide additional visibility and comfort around Cubic's financial situation, which is similar to what we would have received from Cubic's publicly listed status. The first being Cubic will provide additional financial reporting and notifications related to its financial situation. 2, Cubic will certify on a quarterly basis as to its financial situation. 3, the Cubic will undergo annual third-party valuations of its available liquidity and equity value to ensure it retains its current creditworthiness requirement. And 4th, the Cubic will increase its surety bond from just under $50 million to a little over $60 million. Cubic Transportation Systems will continue to operate the Venture Fair systems through 2029 under its current contract terms, and no changes being made at any compensation under the agreement. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
The company got turned into private company, okay, or what?
That's correct. They were previously a listed company, publicly traded, and now the two firms, they're affiliates of Veritas Capital and Elliott Investments, took the company private in effect. So, again, it just went from a publicly traded company to a privately traded company. As part of this fifth supplement, we ensured that the information, even though they're private, that we still receive the similar type of information that we would have received from them as a publicly traded company. And this allows us to continue to assess their creditworthiness and ability to pay, in essence. So, again, we feel confident and comfortable with the additional guardrails that we have in place through this supplement that will get all of the information that we would have otherwise gotten as a publicly traded company.
And our relations with a private company, okay, are as good as they were, okay, with the other one?
Yeah, so the people that we deal with at Cubic, remain in place. And again, we have a good working relationship with Cubic. And, again, nothing is expected to change, dramatically on that front.
Okay, thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Just, we don't anticipate any issues then whatsoever, no changes in capacity or in their ability to service us in any way.
No, none at all.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, there are no further questions on this matter.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. We may now go to number 11, sir.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing additional funding for blanket construction management consulting services. Bill Mooney.
Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance increasing the total contract authority for blanket construction management service contract from $70 million to $84 million. The blanket construction management service contract provides task order-based CM services for the CTA's capital construction program, as well as in support of adjacent construction projects to CTA properties. The current contract has reached its financial authority limits, and the increase is required to continue to support existing projects while a replacement contract is procured. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
I don't have any questions.
Director Jakes, do you have any questions?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
No further questions, Chairman.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. We can go to number 12, sir.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Lakeview Roscoe Village Chamber of Commerce and Friends of Lakeview NFP for authority property between Southport Avenue and Paulina Street, Chicago, Illinois, for the Lakeview Law Line, Brown Line. Bill Mooney.
Thank you. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer again. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with the Lakeview Roscoe Chamber of Commerce and Friends of Lakeview NFP for CTA property between Southport Avenue and Paulina Street. The licensee seeks to program, improve, and maintain an area under the Brown Line elevated structure for the benefit of area businesses and residents. The proposed license area is approximately 77,000 square feet of area underneath the Brown Line between Southport and Paulina Street, and the project is commonly referred to as the Low Line. The licensee will be able to make additional improvements to the area with the review and approval of the CTA, as well as be responsible for all maintenance and upkeep of the area. Under the terms of the agreement, the license will be in effect for a period of 10 years at no cost to the licensee, with either party able to cancel the agreement with 60 days notice. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Is this the first time that we have this type of agreement with them?
This would be the first time we're doing an agreement with this specific group. We do from time to time historically what we call yard and garden agreements, where we allow adjacent residents to maintain the property underneath the L for their own use. And they're similar in structure. This is a much larger area and commercial entities, so there are some different terms associated with it.
Thank you.
Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
I have a question. It's not directly to this. It might not be you, Bill, who answers this, but with regards to training and, so much more being done digitally, I'm just curious, you might not be able to answer today, but how much more of our training is being done virtually now? Is that something that we're doing more now so that, obviously it would reduce the amount of physical space that we're utilizing. And I know kind of as a conversation, President Carter, you and I talked a little bit about, but I'm just curious overall.
Yeah, we do more training digitally or virtually than we used to, particularly for our administrative employees. Many times for operational employees, the physical presence of the employee is required for portions of the training that they're receiving. But even there, we're now incorporating more digital technology in that training than we have in the past. If you would like, I can have our head of training development put together a report, give you a better understanding of the overall way we're approaching this. But yes, we are leveraging and taking advantage of virtual learning tools as part of an overall strategy for CTA. And in fact, many of our employees and maybe some of you as board members have had to take some of our virtual training for like ethics and things like that, which is all virtual and none of it is taught in person. So, that is being done on more and more topics as we move forward.
Yeah, I'd love to see, and thank you. No, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
We'll get that for you. I will share it with the rest of the board as well.
Thank you. There's no further questions on this item, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine and seconded by Director Jakes. I believe that was agenda item number 12, if I'm correct, and we now move on to agenda item number 13.
Yes.
Right.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a facilities use license agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for continued use of instruction space at Truman College, Chicago, Illinois, through August 2021. Bill Mooney.
Thank you. Once again, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff is recommending approval of an ordinance authorizing an extension to a facility use license agreement with the City Colleges of Chicago for instruction space at Truman College. In April 2021, the Transit Board approved an agreement with the City Colleges of Chicago for space at Truman College to provide indoor, socially distanced space on an interim basis for training purposes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The space includes an overall hall, 5 classrooms, and a cafeteria. The agreement was approved from March 30th, 2021 and ran through June 30th, 2021. At this time, staff is requesting approval of an extension from June 30th, 21 through August 31st, 2021, with an additional value of $52,574 while permanent space is being prepared for the use going forward. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
And Director Alvarez-Rosales. I think you asked your question on this. Correct? Do you have any questions on this one, Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. We're finished with the questions on number 13, Chairman Silva.
Our next order of business is the review.
Chairman Silva, we need to put 13 on the omnibus.
Okay, since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. That was 13. So let's move on to 14.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance establishing the authority's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise DBE program goal for federal fiscal years 2022-2024. Juan Pablo and Tom Macon.
Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs and the CTA's DBE Liaison Officer, here to present the Chicago Transit Authority's overall agency disadvantaged business enterprise goal for our federally funded contracts for federal fiscal years 2022 through 2024. As a recipient of federal funds through the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, the CTA must establish a 3-year agency goal for DBE participation on federally funded contracts according to the methodology set out in the U.S. Department of Transportation's DBE regulations. The goal and methodology were posted on CTA's website for a 30-day comment period between May 3rd, 2021 and June 2nd, 2021. Notice of the comment period was sent to our technical assistance agencies, members of our DBE Advisory Committee, DBE, MBE, and WBE certified firms, non-certified firms, and was published in the Austin Weekly News, Chicago Chinese Times, Chicago Citizens, and Negocios Now, as well as CTA's Facebook and LinkedIn pages multiple times. We also hosted a webinar where we explained the methodology and invited the public to comment on the proposed goal via Zoom on May 13th, 2021. Although we did not receive any comments, we did have 10 attendees on our webinar who asked questions about the methodology and were engaged in the explanation of the goal. We also walked through the methodology with our DB Advisory Committee and our technical assistance agencies. Based on the calculation and historical data, staff recommends the CTA adopt a 26% DBE goal for federally funded contracts during federal fiscal years 2022 through 2024. Upon board approval, CTA will submit the proposed goal and methodology to the FTA for review and approval as required by the regulations. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Barkley.
Well, just one comment. I'm glad to see that we're at the same goal, and I'm glad to see that we exceeded our goal in other years past too. So that's good. Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Director Irvine.
No questions.
Director Alvarez.
Just keep up the good work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan Pablo. Chairman Silva, we have no further. I'm sorry, Dorval?
Greg, before you move on, I just wanted to make one other comment to the board about this item. Obviously, we set a goal for a 3-year period that's not at 26%. But the one thing that I want you to recognize, one, that we view this goal as the floor, not the ceiling. And as you pointed out, Director Barkley, we have exceeded our goal in years past, and we will continue to do that. That's certainly my expectation and certainly JP expectation as well. The second thing is, many of you are familiar with the fact that we've got a major opportunity for a new capital program that's being discussed in Congress right now, which could bring a significant increase in the amount of federal dollars to CTA over the course of the next several years. And if that were to occur and the opportunities that were to develop as a result of that required us to revisit our goal for the 3 years, we would do that and would come back with a modified or updated goal that reflects the additional spending. Historically, when we've had a large influx of federal funds, or state funds for that matter, that does have an impact on the goal that we can achieve because we're putting out a lot more work and we're doing a lot more projects. So we're going to be looking for that opportunity as an opportunity to revisit the goal and possibly increase it if we believe the opportunities exist to support that. And then finally, major capital projects like the RPM and like Red Line Extension are eligible to receive a standalone goal that reflects the work of that project. And we are certainly looking at right now, particularly for Red Line Extension, as that project continues to move forward, the possibility of establishing a standalone goal that would apply to that project, which would not necessarily be capped by the 26% goal that we established overall. So I wanted to just put that little in everyone's bonnet, and hopefully things go well. We'll be coming back to the board in the future with updates that'll be positive towards our overall goal.
Thank you, President Carter, for that explanation. Chairman Silva, there's no further questions on this DBE program goal.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I think we're halfway through, so Chairman Silva, let's move on to number 15. Our
next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Consolidated Rail Corporation for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Extension RLE project. Mike Connolly.
Good morning. I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Before you this morning is a staff recommendation to adopt an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Consolidated Rail Corporation, also known as Conrail, for preliminary engineering services to support the Red Line Extension project. The RLE project requires relocation of Conrail's track and a highway bridge over the right-of-way and across Conrail's Kensington branch between approximately 124th Street and 126th Street. This agreement and the work it will authorize by Conrail is necessary to finalize the RLE project alignment, to provide a basis for future agreements with Conrail, and to mitigate third-party risks early in this RLE project. As part of the preliminary engineering services, Conrail and their staff and their consultants will review CTA engineering plans, will participate in correspondence and in meetings to progress the project, as well as to draft, review, and handle future project agreements, and ultimately to coordinate construction schedules for the work when RLE enters its construction phase. The cost of this agreement is a maximum of $35,000 total. This includes the railroad prepared estimate of $14,665, as well as a contingency of up to $20,335. Thank you. I'll try to answer any questions that you may have about this item.
Since there are no...
Chairman, do you have any questions on this matter, Chairman Silva, for Mike?
No, I don't.
You don't have any questions. All right, let me check with the rest of the board. Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
Director Barkley.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Director Alvarez.
No questions.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Chairman Silver, there's no questions now anymore on this first RLE project.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, second by Director Jakes. Now let's move on to the second one of those, number 16.
Good morning.
16.
16, yes.
Yes,
Our
16.
next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Illinois Central Railroad Company for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Station project. Mike Connolly.
Good morning, directors. Again, I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Before you today is another staff recommendation and ordinance. This one would authorize CTA to enter into an agreement with the Illinois Central Railroad Company, known as Illinois Central, which is wholly owned by Canadian National or CN Railway, for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Extension project. The Red Line Extension project requires an aerial crossing over the Illinois Central property and the potential use of Illinois Central property for structural foundations in the vicinity of 118th Street. This agreement and work by the Illinois Central staff is necessary to help us finalize the RLE project agreement, to provide a basis for future agreements, and to mitigate third-party risks early in the project. The cost of the agreement is $45,000. This includes the railroad prepared estimate of $25,000, as well as a contingency of up to $20,000 for this contract. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chairman Silva. Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Barkley.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions. Just it was nice to see a familiar name in there with Carol Morey on the opposite side of the table. So that was fun. Thank you.
Director Alvarez.
No questions.
Thanks, Mike. Chairman Silver, there are no further questions on the second RLE project.
Our next order of business.
Chairman Silver, we need to get 16.
If there are no further questions, I can leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. Now we can go to 17.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Office of Emergency Management and Communications for a vaccine bus program. Tom Bonds.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Donald Bonds, the Chief Transit Officer here at CTA. Staff recommends that the Chicago Transit Board approve entry into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago to allow the city to use 7 CTA buses for the city's vaccination program. 5 buses will be used for administering vaccines, and 2 buses will be used to transport people to and from vaccine locations. The city will reimburse the CTA for its labor costs for operating the buses and the cost of bus wrapping up to a maximum reimbursement amount of $206,248, exclusive of all costs incurred by CTA during any extension of the term. The IGA has a term retroactive to May 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2021, with 2 possible 1-month extensions by mutual agreement. The CTA will make alterations to the interior of the buses as directed by the city to adapt the buses for vaccinations. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have a question.
Director Jakes, any questions for Mr. Barnes?
Yes. So the alterations that need to be made to the bus, that is going to be the responsibility of the city. They're reimbursed for that as well?
Yes, but the alterations are being made by by CTA at the South Shop facility. It's just a matter of removing a seat so they can put a table in to be able to set up the vaccines on the table as customers board the bus to get their vaccinations. Okay, so it's not a major alteration to the bus.
But the labor cost is going to be on the city, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thanks. Director Miller, any questions?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Just curious how the coordination of how people are getting picked up and the communication to the groups, how is that being worked through the city? Is that all the city that's coordinating that?
Yeah, right now we have not had to do that yet. It hasn't been a requirement. So right now the buses are kind of on standby. If they call on, if there's a certain event that they're going to do in the community and it may require moving residents from a building or whatever the case may be, these 2 buses are utilized for that. So they're kind of on standby, but the other 5 buses are definitely being utilized a lot in various areas.
Okay.
And just to clarify, Vice Chair Rosales, yeah, the city is the one that both plans for the events and publicizes them and manages all of it. CTA's only responsibility is to ensure that the bus is at the location at the date and time that they requested.
Well, just glad to hear we're getting more people vaccinated. Hopefully that continues to help with that. So that's good.
Yeah. The city is very excited about this program because it really allows them to go into the communities to vaccinate them. And they've certainly been focused on those communities that they know have not seen the vaccination rates at the level that other parts of the city have been able to achieve. So it's been a useful tool for them, which is why they've been willing to basically subsidize the cost of this service for CTA.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carter, and thank you, Don. Chairman Silver, there's no further questions on the bus.
So,
You just need to put it on the omnibus, sir.
yeah. Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Agenda item number 17 moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. Let's move to 18.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2021-2022. Steve Wood.
Good morning, Directors. Steve Wood, Deputy General Counsel in the CTA's Law Department. This is an ordinance authorizing the 2021 to 2022 property insurance policy. This insurance policy runs from July to July and is renewed every year. Our insurance broker at Alliant Mesero and our DBE Paradigm marketed the renewal to both domestic and international insurance markets, and a consortium of those providers provided the best combination of coverage and price. Our policy coverage remains the same. The proposed policy covers all of the CTA's real property, including rail stations and structures, electrical substations, office buildings, bus barns, garages, etc. There's a primary layer of $25 million and 2 excess layers going to $130 million, and then an additional $50 million to $180 million which we added when we increased the concentrated asset values with the renovations or rebuildings of the 95th Street Station and the Wilson Station. The proposed premium for next year's policy, along with taxes and fees, is approximately $4,992,000, which is an increase of about $314,000 or 6.7% from this year's rates. Rate increases are typically based on increases in asset value, claims history, and the state of the insurance market. The CTA's asset values were essentially flat, and there was no activity in the claims area, but the market for rail insurance has hardened substantially for the fourth year due to catastrophic losses related to wildfires and storms, including a Midwest derecho last year that hit close to home. We are usually immunized from such catastrophic weather events. But in addition, COVID has continued to provide a substantial amount of uncertainty in the market, causing insurers to withdraw capacity and limit their exposure. Given that we anticipated earlier this year facing a 10 to 15% increase, we are pleased that the increase is only around 6.7%. Having said that, we recommend renewal with this consortium. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So we will pass that increase, okay, to the end user. The increase in the, sorry, you can.
You have a question, Chairman? Chairman Silva. I think Chairman Silva.
Can you hear me? I don't have.
Now we can hear you, Chairman. Ask your question to Steve. Thank you.
No, I don't have a question.
You have no questions? All right. Well, thank you. Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
Director Barkley.
No question.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Director Rosales.
No questions.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Chairman Silver, there's no questions on the property insurance matter.
So if there are no further questions, I have you to place this item on the Omnibus for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, number 18 was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. So all the ordinances.
18, our next order of business is, I'm sorry,
Well, that's
go
okay.
to 18 now, okay?
We've just finished 18, sir, so now we can start moving on to the contracts.
Okay, let's.
Yep, we're all set. Thank you.
Our next order of business is contract number A1, a tool and training contract.
Questions, Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Rosales?
No questions.
Chairman, let's go to number A2.
Our next order of business is contract number A2, a machine tool contract.
Questions, Director, Chairman Silva? Any questions, sir?
No questions.
All right, Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alva Rosales?
No questions.
Chairman, we're finished with A. We can move to B as in boy 1.
Our next order of business is a contract number B1, a tree trimming and removal contract.
Chairman Silva, any questions?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alva Rosales?
No questions.
We're finished with that item. Sir, we can go to B2.
B2. Our next order of business is contract number B2, a power upgrades contract.
Chairman Silva, any questions?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alva Rosales?
No questions.
All right, we're finished with that. Chairman Silva, let's go to C as in cat 1.
Our next order of business is contract number C1, an amendment to a fair systems contract. No questions. No questions.
All right, Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez?
No questions.
All right, Chairman Silver, I'm sorry?
No comments.
D as in dog 1.
Our next order of business is contract number D1, a change order to a planning contract. No questions.
No? Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez?
No questions.
Our next order of business is contract number F1, an RFP for office supplies.
Questions, sir?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez?
And just a question, there's no DBE opportunities on this?
Because of the way that it's procured, right, there are no opportunities for subcontracting. They come directly from the two suppliers that we're choosing. And because it's on demand, there's no opportunity for us to evaluate what we would purchase when. So we wouldn't be able to put a DBE goal on it.
Okay, thank you.
Finished with questions on that, Chairman. So,
Our final order of business is contract number H1, an environmental consulting contract.
question, Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Alvarez?
No questions.
Since there's no further questions, Chairman Silva, we may proceed to number 19A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 8 contracts that the committee review on the Omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Chairman Silva, we may proceed to 19B as in boy.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the Omnibus and recommend the Omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was moved by Director Irvine and seconded by Director Jakes. I will now take a roll call vote on the omnibus. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion passes with, this is new, 6 yes votes, I'm glad to say. Thank you. We can proceed to agenda item number 20, sir.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Let's have the vote. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alvarez?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to adjourn has been approved with 6 yes votes. Chairman Silva did a great job, and we're going to take a 5-minute vote before we start the full board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hello again, this is Greg Longini of the CTA Board Office, and we're ready to begin the regular board meeting of June 16th. I'll turn it over to Vice Chairman Arabelle Alvarez-Rosales.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for June 16th, 2021. Would the secretary call the roll? Greg?
Yes. Director Silva. Director Silva.
He has to unmute.
Unmute, yes.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Jakes is here. Director Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Right here.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Vice Chairman Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
We have all 6 members of the board present. And let the record show that President Carter and Council Karen Simons are also participating in this meeting.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Our first order of business today is public comment. Greg, do we have public comment?
Yes, we do have public comment. We have 2 speakers today. The first speaker, I hope I get the name right, Amanda, is it Pash or Pack? I'm not sure, but Amanda, you'll be the first one to go. And we ask all of our public comment speakers to try to limit their discussion or their talk to about 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you, Amanda. Please continue.
Thank you to the Board of Directors for allowing me to speak. I would like to point out the policy under the stroller description and the website for CTA. I would like to see more on what parents can do to make a better purchase of strollers, because there's so many models, and often the cheapest stroller models are the bigger ones, and they're the most cumbersome on CTA. I myself am a parent who've worked with social workers who assisted my family throughout me being a parent. And one of the things that we don't have access to is information on what we can do and what the bus is equipped with to help us as parents for when we purchase strollers. And that might not seem like a big deal to most people, but if you're a commuter like I am, I go to the city every day. I take my daughter with me. We don't know what the best purchase would be, and it ends up costing a lot more money to seeing what the measurements would be on where it would fit. So something as simple as allowing social workers and other family advocates to see what the bus floor plan is, something as simple as making that public, would help us a lot as our children grow, because the sizes change and the cost is also an enormous factor for us. I have had 2 years of customer service interaction where I would point this out, and why I decided to speak today is because something very simple like that would have helped me throughout these 2 years as my daughter grew. So thank you for your time, and I'll probably pop in another meeting to maybe offer some more insight on what it's like to be a commuting parent with a baby. So thank you again.
Amanda, thank you so much. Could you say your last name for us just so we get it clear?
It's Pasha.
Pasha. Okay. Thank you. Well, as a mom, I really thank you, for coming before us and sharing this information. And what I'd like to do, because I want to make sure that we follow up with you and look into this at least, is I'm going to ask that Brian Steele, who's the VP of our communications, contact you and work with you a little bit on this. But thank you for bringing this to our attention. We appreciate it. Appreciate the information, and thank you for coming before us and taking the time to do so. Again, as a mom, I appreciate your comments. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Our second and last public speaker today will be someone who we all know quite well, Garland Armstrong. Garland?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Garland.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome aboard, Director Barkley, as becoming new chairperson. I'm Garland Armstrong, formerly of Des Plaines, Illinois, now living in Des Moines, Iowa, and I just want to thank CTA for everything what they have done all these years, and I want to express my biggest surprise of CTA coming up with the with the new station of Stain Lake, and also making sure for people with disabilities have access to every station and making sure that they keep on so they can have safety important, and also making sure that CTA will keep on going with the buses and the trains. And as a former CTA ADA advisory board member, I just would like y'all to know that you have done an awesome job, and keep up the good work. And if you have anything down the road to show me, can you mail it off to the new address where I'm at in Des Moines to see how CTA will look in the near future? And if I want to add additional comments for y'all, because you guys have done a superlative, awesome job. And I want to thank y'all for everything. And Greg, I know you got somewhere down the road a thank you part for me for being as a former CTA writer and also being on the CTA board member. And President Dorval Carter, keep up the good work and make sure that you get everything from the federal government, because sometimes so y'all can keep on with those projects so you can reach your entire goal, and making sure that CTA will be in the top 100%, and also with the data of everything for all the safety and all the incidents and everything. So I want to thank y'all for everything, and if I'll be glad if you have any questions from any of the directors.
Garland, we want to thank you for keeping an eye on us, even though you're not here in Chicago anymore. I mean, we're really grateful to you. Say hi to your wife, Heather. We're grateful for all the work that you've done and that you're keeping an eye on us. I know that Director Irvine has worked with you in the past and might want to, give you a direct shout out. So Director Irvine.
Thank you, Vice Chair Albert Rosales. Hey, Garland, and hey, Heather, if you're listening. Great to hear from you. I think maybe we need to hear from you about once a year just to keep us pumped up.
You got it, Kevin. Director
Thank
Kevin,
you.
because Heather says hello to you, and making sure that once your term is up, Kevin, I hope they will get the new director for the ADA, because it's definitely so we can get more voices here for the disability community to be a part of it, since you've done an awesome job as a director.
Thank you so much, Garland. And I wish you and Heather the best in Des Moines. And I look forward to seeing you guys when you come back to Chicago to visit, which I know you will.
We will. We're coming back in October as visitors. And anytime if you want to show us something brand new for CTA, you can call me anytime. And we're in the Chicagoland area. And just show us what y'all got, and it'll be great.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Stay in touch with us.
Yes, President Carter.
We certainly will.
I just want to say on behalf of the CTA staff, we also want to extend our appreciation and gratitude to Garland and his wife for the engagement that they have had with CTA over the years. I personally have known Garland for many years, even before I became president of CTA. And so I know how passionate and committed he is to good public transit for people with disabilities. And I believe he has now set the record for the public commenter who is farthest away from our service area doing a public comment at a CTA board meeting. So he has another distinguishment to add to his credit in terms of his involvement with CTA. So I wish him and Heather nothing but the best, and certainly have appreciated their advocacy around accessibility issues over the years.
Great, thank you. Thank you, President Carter.
And,
all right, everyone.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you.
And that concludes our public comment today, Director Alvarez-Ellis.
Great, thank you. Our next order of business today is the approval of the May 12th board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed, and I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 12th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me, the motion was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll now take the vote. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Okay.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Barkley.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business is we'll go to board matters. Let's start with agenda item 4A. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance fixing the salary of Lester L. Barkley as a member of the Chicago Transit Board.
So moved.
Second.
That motion was moved by Director Irvine, second by Director Jakes. We'll take the vote. Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Okay.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
That motion passes with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director.
Great. Thank you. Our next order of business is agenda item number 4-B. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance appointing members and chairs to certain standing committees of the Chicago Transit Board.
So moved.
Second.
4B has been moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take the vote. Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Let's see.
4C.
4C. So now I will now entertain a motion to approve board agenda item number 4C, an ordinance electing Lester L. Barkley as chairman of the Chicago Transit Board and setting the chairman's salary. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
4C has been moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take the vote. Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Okay.
Vice Chairman Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and abstention by Chairman Barkley.
Great. Before handing over the gavel, and I know we have a very full agenda, but I would like to take a few minutes at this time to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication, for their support during the last almost 9 months of my serving as acting chair of this organization. I have to tell you that we went through a period of unknown. We had no playbook to rely on, and I dare say we not only survived, but we really flourished. This is an incredible team, and I thank all of you for your patience with my many questions. I know I tend to look at things logically and creatively, and I really care about moving things forward. And I want to thank each and every one of you for how deeply each and every one of you care about the city, about the CTA, about making the best during what was really the worst of times. The list of people I would like to thank individually is way, way too long. But I do want to make sure that I thank those individuals that are on the front line, because frankly, they make our jobs so much easier because they work so hard. I want to send a special shout out to April for her amazing work and her patience with me. Thank you so much. Greg, well, I want to thank Greg for just being Greg, because that's, that says it all. Jeremy Fine for always keeping an eye on the money. Keep on doing that. We need you to do that. All of our departments and all of the workers, and President Carter for your leadership. And Herb, I give you a thumbs up because, you keep us in line during these, again, unusual meetings that we've had to have. And of course, all of my fellow board members for their utmost professionalism. So thank you. And now it has been grand, but it is time. So I'd like to say, Chairman Barkley, I will now hand over to you the gavel. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales, and good morning to all of you. First, I want to acknowledge my gratitude to Mayor Lightfoot and the City of Chicago City Council for this appointment. I also want to acknowledge former Chairman Peterson for his leadership, his rich legacy that he has left me to build upon. I want to also acknowledge and thank the board of directors, each of you, for your support and your pledge to work with me to be the best public transit agency in America. I want to acknowledge and thank you, Vice Chair, for your role in serving for these months in the interim role and for the fine job that you've done. I want to also acknowledge the board staff here that has done a very Herculean job of getting me up to speed over the past few weeks, and I do appreciate that, along with President Carter and the entire CTA staff and what they've done to work with this incoming chairperson to sort of get up to speed. I want to just make one final comment and to just tell you that dreams can and do come true. More than 40 years ago, I started off with CTA as a summer worker. Worked 3 summers, but one in particular, I worked as a rail as a conductor on the train in rail service. And I remember the comments of an older gentleman who said, "Son, if you do a good job, one day you might just be chairman of the board." And I laughed at him thinking, oh my God, I'm just trying to earn a few dollars to get back to college and keep it going. And I thought about that when Mayor Lightfoot reached out to me and said, for a young kid from Inglewood, the youngest of 11 children, dreams do come true. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to serve. I'm happy to work with each of you to, as I indicated, to make CTA the best transit agency in the country. So moving on to business. I want to acknowledge our Vice Chair, Alvaro Rosales, and the fine work that she has done. And so I'm going to ask Greg if he would read a resolution. Thank you. Greg, I think you're on mute.
Greg, you're muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Arabelle. You didn't know about this, so we're going to surprise you. I'm going to read a resolution of appreciation for Vice Chair Arabelle Alvaro Rosales. Whereas CTA Board Chairman Terry Peterson's term concluded on September 1st, 2020, and whereas state statute and CTA bylaws empower the board's vice chair with all the duties and responsibilities of the chairman in the absence of the chairman, and whereas Arabelle Alvaro Rosales has been the CTA board's vice chair since 2017, and whereas Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales was immediately faced with serious and unparalleled challenges confronting the authority due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic was negatively impacting the health of CTA employees, its customers, and the economy, and whereas Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales addressed all of these challenges in a competent and productive manner, and whereas Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales has worked tirelessly with CTA leadership and staff throughout the pandemic in a collaborative and congenial manner, making her time available whenever necessary to perform the duties and responsibilities of board chairman. And whereas, among other things, Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales guided the CTA through the difficult budget process for the 2021 budget. And whereas, in addition, Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales oversaw the approval of over $1 billion in CTA expenditures to ensure the future viability of the CTA. And whereas Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales spent nearly 9 months assuming the responsibility of serving the CTA in the role of Transit Board Chairman, now therefore be it resolved that the Transit Board appreciates Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales' dedication of service to the board, the CTA's management team, and to CTA's dedicated workforce. It further resolved that the board recognizes the hard work Vice Chair Rosales exhibited these last 9 months, as well as the generous giving of her time. Be it further resolved that the board expresses its gratitude to Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales and looks forward to continuing to work with her in the future, leading the CTA forward.
Well, wow. Thank you so much. I did not know about this. And it's unusual, but I'm speechless. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, I really appreciate everybody's efforts and all the hard work. And Chairman Barkley, we are so excited about having you on board. And as I mentioned to you, anything I can do to help, you've got a great team here, so looking forward to it. But again, thank you. And again, thank you, President Carter, because, everybody has worked so hard. So thank you. I really appreciate those kind words. It means a lot. Thank you.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
If you don't mind, I'd like to say a few words as well. Please. So obviously, I thought the resolution was a very appropriate and I think very insightful description of the role that one assumes as chair at CTA. And I believe that that Vice Chair Rosales has done a yeoman's job fulfilling that function. But there's one function that doesn't really get mentioned in the role of chairman, and it's something that Chairman Barkley will start to experience now that he's in that role, and it's something that Chairman Peterson certainly performed during his time as chairman, and that's the relationship between the CEO and the chair. And the reality is that the CEO, I view the chairman as someone who's really a confidant, someone that I can talk to, that I can express concerns or desires about, and who can give me sound advice and support for what I'm trying to accomplish as the head of CTA. And in that particular role, you also excelled in terms of not just being available for CTA as a whole, but also being available for me. We had numerous conversations over the course of your tenure where we discussed one-on-one issues of mutual concern, sought advice, gave advice, and really sort of supported each other as we managed our way through these unprecedented times. And I will forever be grateful for your support and your effort to support CTA over the past 9 months. And so as part of that, there's one other thing that we wanted to do. And unfortunately, because we're not in person, I can't do this to you directly, but I just want to show you that the CTA team has put together a little gift for you, which is a clock with an engraving of a CTA rail car on it. And on it, there's a plaque which reads, Arabelle Alva Rosales, in appreciation as Vice Chair for assuming the duties of CTA Transit Board Chairman from September 2020 to June of 2021, with gratitude from the CTA President's Office. So I'll find a way to get this to you at some point, Arabelle, but I just wanted you to know that we also found a way to just memorialize the work you've done.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chairman would invite any other board members who might want to make brief comments as well.
Well, I just want to say, Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales, I think you did a superb job. You stepped right in, and we didn't miss a beat with you at the helm. And if the mayor had asked me about you being the permanent chair, I would have given a hearty hearty, resounding yes. You did a fantastic job, and I want to thank you for all the extra time you had to put in over the last 9 months. And I'm glad you're still serving on the board, and thank you for all your service this past year.
Thank you. Great team. Great team. Thank you.
Vice Chair, I just wanted to say that you definitely, I want to echo the sentiments of everything that's been said, but for me, what really stood out about your leadership is your class, your dignity, and your ability to think critically, to ask the questions that were not obvious in the reports, and to give a aha to those unmentionable moments. So, thank you so much for your leadership. You are just one class act, and I'm glad to have served under your leadership, and glad to continue serving on the board with you. So thank you for 9 months of giving of yourself during a time when you really could have said, no, let's do something different. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Director.
I just want to join in and say ditto to all that's been said. Thank you for the friendship and for the conversation when we were meeting in person, but especially during these 9 months or so of this COVID and this pandemic. You really stood out and helped us to stay together with your motivation and your leadership. I just want to join everybody and say how much we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Arabel, it made me very, very, very proud, all this time, that you've been leading us. And one thing, in special, I don't know, you all know, but you are the only Mexican person, having here this job, and that makes me very, 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 very proud, and I admire all your work, and congratulations.
Well, thank you. Gracias. Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias. Well, thank you, everybody. Big heart to everybody. I really appreciate it. And we've got such a great team. And thank you so much. And you are in such good hands, Chairman Barkley. So as you can see, you've got an incredible team. So thanks so much. Appreciate every word. Thanks so much.
At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation of Vice Chair Alvaro Rosales.
I move it.
Second.
Heartily moved.
Greg, will you call the roll?
Greg, you're muted.
Greg.
Why does that keep happening? I got to keep my eye out for this. All right, I heard it all. I heard that motion being moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes, and let's take a vote on it. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvaro Rosales.
Yes, with a big thank you. Yes.
Of course. And Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Karen, that there is an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, we will have executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, subparagraphs 1, 2, and 6 of the Open Meetings Act.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session based upon council's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Take the vote. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvaro Rosales.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, so we are now in recess. Hello
Recording
again.
in progress.
Hello again. This is Greg Longini of the CTA Board Office. We're about to begin. I turn it over to Chairman Lester Barkley.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to return to the open meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller? Director Miller? Could you please unmute?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes for Director Miller. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alvarez?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes to return to open session. I would like to state for the record that board agenda item number 5A and board agenda item number 5B is being deferred.
Our next order of business is on the board agenda is item number 5C. Karen?
Thank you. Item 5C is a recommendation that the board authorize execution of a collective bargaining agreement containing the terms of a tentative agreement with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers District 8. This covers CTA's architects, engineers, technicians, and coordinators and related positions. It's about 65 people. The agreement is for the term of January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2021. For the years 2017, 2019, the wage increases will be based on the total that ATU's locals 241 and 308 received, with the same healthcare design that helps CTA manage the annual premium increases. For 2020 and 2021, District 8 will receive a 1% increase on January 1st and July 1st of each year, or alternatively, any higher amount that ATU should negotiate. Staff, Infrastructure, Law, and Finance recommend that the board authorize these terms of the tentative agreement. That concludes my presentation.
I will now entertain a motion to approve agenda item 5C, an ordinance authorizing a collective bargaining agreement containing the terms of a tentative agreement with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, District Number 8, Architects, Engineers, and Quality Improvement Technicians. After the motion is moved, Greg, will you please announce the vote?
Yes, I will, sir.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded by Directors Irvine and Jakes. Take the vote. Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Alvarez?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes on 5C.
Our next order of business on the board agenda is item 5D, an ordinance sustaining the discharge of Patrick Holden. Karen?
Thank you. This involves the board's review of the recommendation of a Section 28 hearing panel on the discharge of Patrick Holden. He requested a Section 28 appeal pursuant to the Metropolitan Transit Authority Act. The panel summarized the evidence in the case and is recommending that the discharge be sustained by the board. Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion to approve board agenda item number 5D, an ordinance sustaining the discharge of Patrick Holden. After the motion is moved and seconded, will you please call the roll?
Will do,
So
sir.
moved.
Second.
That motion was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. The vote. Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Rosales?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
Motion to approve 5D is approved with 6 yes votes.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the May 12, 2021 committee minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee heard a presentation from the authorities' auditors. The committee reviewed the following 14 ordinance. An ordinance authorizing an amendment to a local pilot agreement with Amazon.com Services LLC, install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers at designated rail stations. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Assets, Information, and Services. An ordinance authorizing an additional experimental university pass, UPass, City Colleges of Chicago for certain part-time students for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. An ordinance authorizing an additional experimental University Pass, UPass program agreement with the University of Illinois at Chicago UIC for certain part-time students for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. An ordinance authorizing the continuation of University Pass, UPass contract terms previously amended due to the COVID-19 pandemic for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 terms. An ordinance consenting to the acquisition of cubic transportation systems by certain affiliates of Veritas Capital and Elliott Investment Management, and authorizing a supplement to the Open Standards Fair System Agreement. An ordinance authorizing additional funding for blanket construction management consulting services. An ordinance authorizing a business agreement with Lakeview Roscoe Village Chamber of Commerce and Friends of Lakeview NFP for authority property between Southport Avenue and Paulina Street, Chicago, Illinois, for the Lakeview Low Line Brown Line. An ordinance authorizing a facilities use license agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for continued use of instruction space at Truman College, Chicago, Illinois, through August 2021. An ordinance establishing the Authority Disadvantaged Business Enterprise DBE program called for federal fiscal years 2022-2024. An ordinance authorizing an agreement with Consolidated Rail Corporation for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Station RLE project. An ordinance authorizing an agreement with Illinois Central Railroad Company for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line RLE project. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Offices of Emergency Management and Communication for a vaccine bus program. An ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for year 2021-2022. The committee reviewed 8 contracts. The committee approved all 14 ordinances, all 8 contracts, and placed them all on the omnibus and recommended board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Barclay.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second.
That motion was moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes, and I'll take the vote. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is a construction report. Mooney.
Good morning, Chairman and Directors. And Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer with your construction report. Herb, can we change the next slide, please? We'll begin today's presentation where we normally do our Jefferson Park to O'Hare Signals project. Next slide. The project remains tight to schedule, but on budget. Since we last met, we have completed the installation of the Rosemont West Relay House. We actually completed the installation of the River Road Relay House. That will be our second to last wayside relay house that we'll be installing. The last one will be at Rosemont West, which is just west of Rosemont Yard. We have also been able to successfully complete the cutover of Harlem Relay House. So we're running on the new audio system there, as well as the interlocking is back in service at this point. A couple of photos to look at. Next slide, please. This is the new River Road Relay House installed. It's right on the edge of the highway up near River Road Street. Next slide. And this is Old Manheim. So at Old Manheim will be our next relay house we're looking to cut over. It will be towards the end of this month. And they are completing up the wiring of that house with the field apparatuses so that they can start commissioning that. Next slide, please. And part of this project with the heavy infrastructure work we've been doing, we're actually going to be doing some traction power work. There's a small portion of the scope near Foster Middle Track, which is close to Jefferson Park, where we'll be installing new negative connections to the Edmond substation. They've done a bunch of the underground work and we'll be coming in the upcoming weeks to actually pull that cable and terminate it. This is part of how we actually provide the power kind of loop. We provide power, positive energy up through the third rail, and we take back negative energy from the train through the running rails, and it runs back through a separate cable path to our substations there. This is really an important part of our upgrade as we continue to make improvements to Blue Line so that we can run our 7,000 fleets out there. Next slide, please. My next project is our transformer replacement project, which is still on schedule and on budget. We are moving forward at Franklin Substation with the completion of Transformer 2 replacement, and they've started the installation of the last transformer in this project, Transformer number 3. A couple photos of the work on Transformer number 2. As I've mentioned in previous months, these ones at Franklin were unique. They are oil type, and here you can see a photo of Transformer number 2 where they're draining the old oil out of that transformer before it gets removed. Next slide. And here, the new transformer number 2 is being craned in place. You can see the last transformer kind of to the right of the screen there. That's the one that they're currently working on. This one has now been installed, tested, and is in service. So Franklin is running on 2 of 3 transformers, both of which are the brand new ones. Next slide, please. My next project is our Refreshed and Renewed program. Since we last met, we've completed work at Bellman on the red line and begun work at Polk on the pink line. And we're progressing forward with the commitment of the 35 stations. Here's some photos of the work that's recently occurred. Here at Belmont, these are the cut metal signage at the beginning of the entrance, or backlit signs that have been out of the lighting behind it have been out for a while. So they took down the covers, replaced it all with LED lighting. It's now bright and stands out as you walk up upon the station, as well as replace the overhead lighting above those signs to LEDs. Next slide. Here you can see a before after of kind of that LED replacement at station house level. You can get a sense of how much more clean and bright and comfortable that environment is with the brighter LEDs and a fresh coat of paint. Next slide. And here's a before after of the platform. So that the platform on the left is still the T8s, the original kind of fluorescent light tubes that were there. And now the platform on the right of the screen is the LEDs. So you get a real sense of what the difference the customer experiences on the kind of that changeover, that lighting upgrade with the fresh coat of paint and that refreshed environment. Next slide. And here's some other kind of improvements at the station. They've completely cleaned and repaired the stairwells, replaced all the signage. You can see kind of the faded accessible entrance signage, as well as the braille that was damaged, has been upgraded and replaced as part of this. Next slide, please. And here's some the lighting upgrades at Polk on the pink line. This is the exterior of the station. You can see the difference kind of in the lighting. They've actually changed out the full fixture on the one slide to a newer style fixture. Next slide. Here is the stairs. So Director Irvine, to your call, Polk actually had an early version of contrasting stair treads, which has been something we've talked a lot with the ADA community about in the advisory council. We've been trying a series of products to kind of make it our standard going forward. Here they had simply over the years painted them. And so we actually restored that painted tread as part of this. It doesn't last for long term, but for the purposes of our program and the 5-year renewal cycle, we should be able to pick it up here. And you can see the big difference that makes on the stairs. Next slide. And here's exterior painting. So I show you lots of slides of the interior of the station, but here's kind of the customer facing frontage as you come up upon the station, as well as community exposure, both to the station house and the columns that support the elevated platforms above the station there. It's a big difference kind of in our good neighbor experience, as well as just kind of as customers walk up on the station and what they see is that first impression. Next slide. My last project today is our Jackson Park Track and Structural Renewal project. The work is continuing on budget and on schedule. It's mostly focused on the area between 59th Street and 61st Street. Next slide, please. We've been doing tie and rail renewal in this area. I've shown you some photos previously of the ties going in. We've actually spent a lot of time recently doing rail renewal, replacing the original 90-pound rail, which was the last of its existence on our system, to the modern standard 115-pound rail that talks about how big the section of rail is. It's the weight of a 3-pound section of it, and it deals with the width of the base of the rail as well as the height of it. More standard industry rail at this point. Next slide. And here's some of the structure work going on. You can see some of the deterioration of the components that they're in the process of replacing on the photos on the right, as well as some of the work that's being cleaned up on the left. And I'd be glad to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Bill. Chairman Barkley, do you have any questions for Bill?
I do not.
All right. Director Jakes, any questions for Bill?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions, but Bill, thanks so much for mentioning the stairs and for refreshing that. That's good.
Director Alvarez-Rosales, any questions for Bill?
No questions, but I really appreciate the before and after comparatives. You could tell the major difference. So thanks for doing that. I know I've used some of them and you don't realize such a difference until you see the two together. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Chairman Barkley, we're finished with questions then for Bill Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. We will now call on Chris Bushell and Juan Pablo Prieto to make their RPM and diversity presentations. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris Bushell, your Chief RPM Officer. RPM continues on budget and tight to schedule. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we are continuing to, it is a design build project. We are continuing to design on this project, although approaching a closeout of that effort. Major structural and systems design is completing with the signaling system to follow. The construction of the bypass is very active at the moment. We're moving forward on several fronts. We're building a temporary track structure just to the west and north, the Belmont station. That will facilitate some later staging associated with it. The bypass itself, we have built the foundations, the superstructure. We poured the primary slab on top of the bridge. Now we're really getting ready to install the track system and then subsequently traction power and signaling. That effort the bypass will conclude itself in the late fall of this year with our milestone 1. Other areas of work in terms of the pre-stage of the work that was in preparation for the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. That work is really in punch list. We had a big internal milestone in the project in the middle of May where we closed down 4 stations, opened 2 temporary stations, and completed much of the signaling that's required to really build the 2 major bridges that are associated and the 4 new stations with the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr area. So pre-stage really in short is in closeout. With some important milestones, and we had a nice press event. Thank you very much, Dorval, with a number of elected officials as well. I'll show some pictures of that in a moment. And then, as I mentioned, the larger Lawrence to Bryn Mawr effort is getting started predominantly on the north end in the area of Bryn Mawr, just to the north of Bryn Mawr, actually, where we're doing various pieces of demolition. We've removed most of the track up in that area on tracks 3 and 4. where we're going to be building the first of the two bridges, and we're starting to do various pieces of demolition associated with the heavy structure in that area. Next slide. So the press event went very well. We had various elected officials, including Alderman Osterman, Mayor Lightfoot, Senator Durbin, and others. It worked out very well. I think everyone had a good event as we kick off some of the heavy civil construction in the demolition and construction in the area of Lawrence to Bryn Mawr, one of the three major components of Red Purple modernization. Next. Critical as we go into this next stage and see lots of demolition and potential community impacts is working with the aldermen. So one of the things we did is we opened up the stations was to give the alderman a tour. He actually rode the first train that was alternatively routed in that extended reroute on tracks 1 and 2. So here we are greeting him at the entrance to the Bryn Mawr temporary station. Next slide. So I mentioned on Red Purple modernization that we were starting to do the track construction, or the track plinth. There are actually two major concrete pours associated with this bridge and the deck. So first we pour the deck, which is really a slab on top of the new steel structure. And then on top of that slab, we actually pour the track system. So you see here someone coming in and doing some of the form work associated with that pour. Next slide. Signal testing, signal testing, signal testing. We will see a number of pictures, both from RPM as well as Urinal Blue, showing the insides of signal relay houses. This is a very complicated piece of work for us, both to get those houses installed, to get them fully wired, and then to very carefully commission them prior to being put into full service. So you see here, this is a train going through an existing interlocking. It's really this is a test train. It is the closing stages of a commissioning effort in the area of Thorndale, and that was prior to us opening the two-track operation and the start of the construction of the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. Next. I mentioned the Bryn Mawr temporary station entrance. I just wanted to show some photographs. There have been a number of those kind of leading up to this, but this is, I think, a good one showing this temporary station. I think a good effort. It is built of wood, which is not our standard, but I think it shows a nice face to the community, and that we're really trying hard to make sure the temporary stations are comfortable and usable, and in elements where we can, actually accessible. They don't have vertical accessibility, but where we could make sure the handrails and other elements were accessible, we did here. So next slide. Further details of the Bryn Mawr temporary station entrance. This is one of two for the Bryn Mawr station. This is for southbound customers. They are split. We do have lots of signage up there explaining that to our customers. If you're going southbound, you'll go to this station. If you're going northbound, you would enter near the existing station. And that's because of the demolition that's required in order to replace that station in the end. Next slide. Temporary platform. Again, a wood platform. We usually build out of concrete, but in order to provide our customers with service in this critical juncture here, as we said, we closed 4 of the stations and opened up 2 temporary ones, and this is one of those platforms. This is the southbound platform at Bryn Mawr. Next. Argyle temporary platform as well. We did the same thing at Argyle. We closed the existing station or parts of it, and then created other platforms in other places so that we could build in the footprint of the old closed station, and then open up the new ones at the end of this next stage of construction for Lawrence to Bryn Mawr. Next slide. Public outreach. We have had a bit of a lull because we had so much effort going into public outreach going into the station to the start of that stage A for Lawrence to Bryn Mawr. But nonetheless, we continue to provide updates to the 44th Ward. As we have started that heavy civil construction up in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr area, there are, of course, a number of areas where we're closing alleys and other streets, and we make sure that we're getting out in those areas and doing public meetings to talk about the options relative to parking alternatives, garbage pickup, and other features that we'll be providing as those streets and alleys are closed. We have done some ambassador research at the start of this just to make sure our customers know that we're out there, and all of us have volunteered to go into the stations and hand out various pieces of material associated with the start of the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr effort. So that's been the ambassador effort has gone on for ahead of the May 16th date when we did the closures. We've done some various door hanger distributions to make sure we have a broad outreach to the community. So following up on other initiatives that we had to kind of broaden the depth of understanding and the impacts, the knowledge of the impacts associated with RPM. We have released some videos that kind of clarify how the stations are configured and provide information to our customers about how to use those stations. And we have done a media roundtable as well, just talking to the media about the construction and the impacts. As well, we continue aggressively with the SBDB effort. And with that, I'll turn it over to Juan Pablo Prieto to talk in more detail of that effort.
Thanks, Chris. We continue to meet monthly with the contractor to discuss DBE and workforce outreach and compliance. On May 3rd, Walsh Floor hosted their second to last installment of the Tracks to Trades program in collaboration with Chicago Public Schools CTE program. This specific installment focused on the benefit of apprenticeships to career development in the trades and featured a presentation from the operating engineers Local 150. On May 6th, Walsh Floor concluded their Tracks to Trades program. Their final presentation featured content from a local bank to discuss the importance of financial planning and literacy while starting in the trades, and allowed for students to engage directly with various representatives from the construction industry in both the public and private sectors. The students that participated received an extensive and comprehensive pamphlet at the conclusion of the Tracks to Trade series, which provided contact information and high-level summaries of the various employment tracks featured in the series. Also on May 6th, we held our second quarter 2021 session of our Building Small Businesses program, our financial capacity program. We hosted 12 one-on-one assessments for those firms to discuss how to secure capital to pursue more work. To date, we have assisted over 20 firms in securing over $5.5 million in capital, including COVID relief dollars. Next slide, please. This month, we wanted to highlight a few employees that are working through the contractor on RPM as a result of the workforce goals CTA placed on the contract. First, we have Erica Ramos, a third-year carpenter's apprentice from Little Village. She was a second-year apprentice and earned the hours she needed to move into third year through RPM. She is WIOA enrolled and rode by the new red-purple bypass site for over 15 years and is now working on the construction of that bypass. Next, we have Pierre Stark, a third-year ironworker apprentice from Englewood. As many trade workers, Pierre got into the trades to make money. CTA's workforce goals aim to provide good middle-class paying jobs to career seekers. Finally, we have Shane DeCusson, a first-year carpenter apprentice who is also WIOA enrolled. Shane came to the project through one of our workforce partners, Hire 360, and has worked on various portions of the project. Shane said she always wanted to work in construction and didn't know girls could. Again, CTA's workforce goals are providing opportunities for underrepresented communities in the construction industry. Next slide, please. Lastly today, we would like to update the board on the Elevating Futures Scholarship. As a reminder, Walsh Floor committed to a scholarship fund as part of their proposal for RPM, and CTA worked with the contractor, CPS, and Chicago Scholars to form the Elevating Futures Scholarship that focuses on CPS students from economically disadvantaged areas pursuing degrees in STEM. This year's winners are Sabina Ramirez from Hedgewich, who will study mechanical engineering at Purdue University. Ricky Ho from Bridgeport, who will be studying computer science at the University of Michigan. And Axel Hernandez from Back of the Yards, who will be studying business administration and is deciding between DePaul and Loyola. That concludes my portion of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you both, Chris and Juan Pablo, for that excellent presentation. Chairman Barkley, do you have any questions for either?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Director Silva, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Director Jakes.
I have a question for Juan Pablo. How many years have they been doing the Elevating Future Scholarship?
This is our second year awarding scholarships.
Okay. Can you send me last year's winners as well, please?
Yes, I can send that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Miller, any questions?
No questions.
Director Irvine.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions for you, Chris. For the Bryn Mawr temporary station, it looked like there was no accessible fare gate in the station. So is the plan for access for anyone that can't use the roto gate just go through the other gate that with help from the customer assistant?
Yeah, but I think it has subsequently been replaced with one. I can verify that.
Okay, and then also the second one is, can you also verify that there's a gap filler at that station?
I will. I believe there is, but I will confirm both.
All right, cool. Thank you so much.
Then Director Alvaro Rosales, do you have any questions or comments?
I guess just comments. Everything seems to be very well received by the public, at least from what I'm hearing, and on a big picture. And it sounds like the individual work that you're doing with the citizens in that area also seems to be going well. So, really happy to see that. I thought the rollout was great. The PR we got out of that was really very well received. So kudos on that hard work. So thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes all the questions for the construction report, Chairman Barkley.
Our next order of business is new business, Greg. Is there any new business?
No, sir, there is not.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
That motion is moved by Director Irvine and seconded by Director Jakes. I will now take our final roll call vote of the day. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
I don't know, Greg. We got a few minutes left to make 1 o'clock. No. Yes.
I will pray for him.
So back to new business. And I'm just saying. I take that was a yes, Director Jakes.
That was a yes.
Okay. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
I mean, if we were just like, a few minutes shy of a record, then I'd say I'd agree with you, Director Jakes. But since not knowing what the record is, I'm going to have to say yes.
All right. That's a yes from Director Irvine. Director Alvaro Rosales.
Yes, and I want to thank the senior staff for the flowers. I just got the flowers, so thank you so much.
It kind of match your coloring there.
Yes.
And that's a yes. And then
that's a yes.
That's a yes. Chairman Barkley.
Yes, and thank you for helping me get through this first meeting, all of you. Thank you so much.
We were happy to do it. And so that motion to adjourn passes with 6-0, and I think all of you deserve a good lunch. Thank you all.
Thank you.